Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The bulls maintain the momentum on the Lal Street. The market's rising for the 7th straight day. This is the longest winning streak in 20 months. Bond prices rally. The yield falls to the lowest level in over 2 weeks. Crude oil prices attempt to recover from 6-month lows even as concerns over global growth and demand continue to persist. The prospects of US and Europe reviving the Iran nuclear deal also keeps oil prices under pressure. The Union Cabinet approves interest subvention of 1.5% per annum on short-term agri loans of up to 3 lakh rupees. The move is likely to cost the government nearly 35,000 crore rupees over 3 years. Also extends the emergency credit scheme for hospitality sector by a year, increases the limit of guaranteed cover by 50,000 crore rupees. India's retailers report 18% growth in July compared to the same month before the pandemic in 2019. Sales of footwear, apparel, personal care products, grocery, jewellery all report healthy growth ahead of the festive season. The DMK joins the Aam Aadmi Party opposing the central government stance in the case against so-called freebies. The Supreme Court observes there is no free lunch but also adds that welfare schemes should be distinguished from freebies. The case will be heard again on the 22nd of August. The CEO of the Unique Identification Authority of India, the UIDAI, Saurabh Garg, defends the move to link the voter ID with Aadhaar, says the move will weed out duplication, also adds that Aadhaar data is safe and secure. That's an exclusive. The BJP drops Nitin Gadkari and Shivraj Singh Chauhan from its parliamentary board in a major organizational rejig. B.S. Yediyurappa, Sarbananda Sonowal and Iqbal Singh Lalpura inducted into the party's highest decision-making body. The union government claims to have broken the ice with FIFA after the global football governing body suspended India's federation, alleging undue influence from third parties. Government tells the Supreme Court 2 meetings have taken place with FIFA and also adds it unwise to disclose the details of the breakthroughs being made. After announcing his intention to buy British football club Manchester United, Elon Musk says it was merely a joke. Manchester United is currently rooted to the bottom of the league after a disastrous start to the new season. But let's start with what was another day of gains on the Lal Street. It was the 7th straight session when the Sensex and the Nifty ended in the green. And this is now the longest winning streak we've seen in the last 20 months, going all the way back to January of 2021. The Sensex back above the 60,000 mark. The Nifty is now closer to 18,000. Anuj standing by to wrap up the market action. Anuj, the bulls clearly in charge.
Very strong day once again for the market, with the Nifty getting within a touch of 18,000. In fact, the Sensex has already hit 60,000, and this is after 5 months that the Sensex has managed to reclaim 60,000. The market breadth has been strong all through this run in August, and really the big catalyst for the pace of the move has been the FII buying. All through the month of August, FIIs have been on the buy side. In terms of individual names today, IT led the move today, so names like Tech Mahindra, HCL Tech and Wipro were all higher. Financial names as well also did well. Bajaj Finserv and Bajaj Finance, they have been on fire since the numbers, and both continued to gain ground. HDFC Life was the other one which did well. Then there were other gainers like Bharti Airtel, Hero MotoCorp, Hindustan Unilever. In the F&O space, we had big movers like Z Entertainment, ICICI Lombard and Trent. Well, it's very clear now that 18,000 would happen. Maybe it could happen as early as tomorrow. But is the market prepared for life after that and go to new all-time highs? Going by the recent evidence, it is, but let's see.
All right, Anuj, many thanks. Now, in the money market, the rupee gained some strength against the dollar, even as it remains above the 79 mark. The 10-year bond price is rallying in trade today. The yields cooled off by over 1%. Lata joins us now with a snapshot of the money market action. Lata, we just talked about the stock markets, but similar sentiment spilling on to the bond market as well.
Oh, absolutely. Bond prices at their highest level since August 4th, so the yields fall to 7.17. And if they pierce the 7.1516 mark, then actually they go to April lows. There is actually a combination, a riot of good news for the bond market. Start with crude prices, but more importantly, falling inflation numbers both in the United States and in India. The July inflation was the 4th straight month in a row that inflation levels have been falling, both on CPI and on WPI. And with all this good news, there was also a bit of a chatter that maybe it's time Indian bonds are included in global indexes. It's actually a Goldman Sachs report. But the chatter is growing that India was put under watch about a month ago, about a year ago, and by JPM, for instance, and maybe they will take a call in favor of inclusion sometime soon, which will mean some $30 billion of inflows. All this is FY23, 2023, but nevertheless, in the crowd of good news, that also participated. There was also a rally in the rupee market, and that again was because of lower crude prices and FPI flows. The foreign fund flows into equities have now grown into almost $2 billion in the past 2 weeks. And the rally would have been a little more, but for the fact that there was also active dollar buying. And people attributed this to the fact, to the Max healthcare deal. KKR probably took away the money. This is just speculation. We couldn't confirm it. But we could confirm that there was a lot of dollar buying, which could also have been bunched up buying after a 4-day holiday for the bond and the rupee market. Now there is a chatter in the rupee market that the rally can go all the way for the rupee up to 78.50 if crude prices continue to fall or continue to remain in the 2-digit mark, and FPI flows remain the way they have been in the last 2 weeks.
Well, how the mood has changed in the currency market. Lata, many thanks for joining us. And since Lata was talking about crude, let's do a quick check of crude oil prices. They have risen, but only slightly, attempting to recover from a 6-month low on larger than expected drop in US oil and gasoline inventories. However, prices continue to be under pressure as concerns over global growth and demand persist. The prospects of the US and Europe reviving the Iran nuclear deal also weighing on the commodity. Manisha is standing by now to take us through the trajectory expected for crude oil. Manisha.
Well, it hasn't been a great week for the crude oil prices. We are down by 5% on the week and trading at a 6-month lows, where we have seen $90 per barrel as well breach for the US crude oil prices. And it's just about holding around 91 to 92 for the Brent crude prices right now. 3 or 4 more important things here. What is putting pressure is the worries about the global recession. The economic data numbers have all come in on the weaker side from Europe, from US, and the Chinese retail sales, factory data, fixed income, all those numbers also came in less than what the street was expecting. The second point is that European Union is studying the final agreement to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear accord. The negotiations have been going on for 18 months now, and we do understand that there are 3 points that need to be resolved, and the final statement is awaited from US onto this. If this goes through, then the experts believe that 2.5 million barrels per day of Iran oil also will start coming into the international markets. So there you have more increase in supplies. You have a similar statement from Saudi Aramco saying that they can increase production to the maximum capacity of 12 million barrels per day. They are only waiting for the government's go-ahead. So the supply situation really seems to be easing right now. It is about the demand which is yet to pick up, and that is exactly what is keeping the prices under pressure.
Manisha, many thanks. A quick check of some of the corporate headlines this evening. Bharti Airtel has paid more than 8,300 crore rupees to the telecom department towards dues for the 5G spectrum acquired in the recently conducted auctions. With this, the company has cleared installments for 4 years ahead of schedule. Airtel has said that this will free up future cash flows for the 5G rollout. State Bank of India continues to see demand for home loans despite a marginal hike in rates. SBI Chairman Dinesh Khara says there's been no tapering in demand despite the hike in rates as things currently stand.
I have not seen the demand tapering off, and earlier also my impression is that, if at all interest rate goes up marginally, then perhaps it may not have any significant impact on the demand for the homes. And the kind of trend which you have seen till now, it actually supports this belief which I have.
Now, in an effort to boost credit flow to the agri and MSME sector, the Cabinet today gave its approval to two key proposals. All agri loans under 3 lakh rupees will get an interest subvention of 1.5%. The government has provisioned around 35,000 crore rupees for the years FY23, 24 and FY25. Now, the emergency credit line guarantee scheme has been enhanced by 50,000 crore rupees. The additional amount has been earmarked for the hospitality and related sectors. Sapna Das joins us now with more. Sapna, take us through the implications of these decisions. And as far as the ECLGS scheme is concerned, nothing new there, is it?
Yes, in fact, on the ECLGS front, we can pretty much show that the 5 lakh crore expanded limit, as well as the fact that it has been extended till March end, that is the end of the financial year. These were basically the budget announcements. The cabinet approval has just come in, so we can now expect this to be notified. This was a specific demand that was made by the hospitality sector quite some time back. So I suppose the rollout will happen now. There is a question that why the time lag. I'm sure that there will be reasons behind that, but no clarity on that as of now, except the fact that cabinet note has come in and now we can actually see the rollout. Also, hardly 6 odd months are left in the financial year. So it will remain to be seen how this really goes and whether at the time of the next budget, the ECLGS will get another extension. If you look at the overall sanction outstanding under ECLGS, it's less than 4 lakh odd crores. So there is ample headroom there, not only in terms of sanctions and approvals, but also probably in terms of yet another extension. Very quickly on the agri loans also, we need to keep in mind that the government has now restored the interest subvention of 1.5%. So, in normal circumstances, those loans will now be at 7 odd %. If you are on time in terms of your repayments, then the interest subvention falls to as low as around 4 odd %. That has been come back, in fact, revived by the cabinet, probably looking at the rural demand and, signs of any distress over there.
All right, Sapna, many thanks for joining us. Now, high inflation hasn't dampened consumer sentiment yet. Retailers across the country have witnessed healthy sales in the month of July, reporting an 18% growth over the pre-COVID period of July 2019. Now, according to a survey by the Retailers Association of India, most categories have witnessed a double-digit increase led by footwear, clothing and jewellery. Some traders feel the end-of-season sale is what has boosted sales in July. Shilpa Ranipeta joins us now with the sales trend. Shilpa, strong demand there across all segments, it seems.
Well, there is a visible recovery in retail sales as consumers are now returning to shop at malls and stores as they did before the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, according to the latest data from Retailers Association of India, retail sales in July increased 36% compared to July last year, while they were up 18% over the pre-pandemic levels of July 2019. Now, it's important to note, though, that July last year, the country was still coming out of a severe COVID wave where the sales were still much lower. Now, from a category point of view, quick service restaurant sales were up about 17% over pre-pandemic levels, and this growth is something that QSR players like Jubilant Foods have also been referring to. Now, beauty and personal care sales are still slightly lower compared to pre-pandemic levels at 3%, and the categories that are actually showing most traction are apparel and clothing and footwear sales, both of which were up above over 20% compared to 2019 and nearly 50% more compared to last year. Now, a good recovery is also being seen in food and grocery sales, in consumer durables and electrical sales, and also in jewelry sales. Now, while there may be some sections like personal care that are yet to recover fully and the impact of inflation is still a cause of worry, RAI says that the July numbers and the trend of recovery has retailers upbeat about the upcoming festive season. In fact, we also spoke to companies like Parle Products, V-Mart and Bajaj Electricals. Listen into what they had to say about a recovery, not just in demand, but also in sales.
You've seen a very strong revival in demand in the first 6 weeks. Last quarter, as you rightly said, was flattish as far as volumes are concerned. And whatever growth we saw was primarily driven by price hikes. So growth was, price-led and not really volume-driven. That is something that has changed in the first 6 weeks of this quarter.
There is a recovery. There is some recovery, but still we are missing out the pre-COVID numbers. And I think things will get in control. Things are becoming better. People are becoming normal with the situation. There is an anxiety that definitely every household, which is the common household, which earns between 15,000 rupees to 40,000 rupees, has in terms of their savings and their management of their budget in their house. So there is a pain which is there. It's better. It's better than Q1, definitely. It's still not the pre-COVID.
Q1, even in volume terms, if I compare to the last 1, 2, or 3 years, has been better. Maybe it's partly because of summer. We've had a good summer, after 2 lockdowns, but even compared to pre-COVID. So I just think slightly better on volumes. On actual value terms, of course, it's better. But if I split that Q1 numbers, I think April and May were good. June is when we started seeing a downturn in demand. And to be honest, that's continued into July. That said, the good news again, August and September, at least when I talk to our sales and distribution guys, they are very bullish on that. We have an early festive season coming up this year, and we expect to make up for the poor demand in July. That's the current expectation.
Well, that's the mood across retailers. But the DMK has now joined the Aam Aadmi Party and opposed the central government's stance in the case against so-called freebies. The apex court has observed there is no free lunch, but also added that welfare schemes should be distinguished from freebies. Ashmit Kumar is standing by with what transpired in court today. Ashmit.
Well, indeed, the Solicitor General appearing for the centre, in fact, began the arguments by pointing out that it would be immature to argue that social welfare can be achieved only through distribution of resources for free, and that seems to have inspired some observations from the apex court. The Supreme Court, in fact, observed that there are no free lunches, that as far as welfare schemes are concerned, that needs to be distinguished from freebies, and therefore freebies in turn need to be defined. Supreme Court went on to say that that access to education, in fact, asked this question of the centre as well as the state governments, that free access to education, healthcare, electricity, can all of this be defined as freebies in the first place? In fact, the Supreme Court also made a reference to the Manrega program and said that that is something that, in fact, has helped uplift various millions of people in terms of assuring dignity of living. Further, the Supreme Court went on to say that promises don't alone win elections. There are parties that have often made promises but have not been voted back to power. So the public wisdom is also something to consider. So keeping that in mind, given that the whole host of parties have now come forth and sought to intervene, for instance, DMK has sought to intervene in this matter. DMK, in fact, even took a dig at the centre, pointing out that the tax waivers, the loan waivers given by the centre to various conglomerates, that too should be considered by the apex court, and that there can be no straitjacket solution or definition for freebies. Demographics keep changing, the needs and requires and the nature of inequalities which are sought to be addressed also keep changing. So that's the DMK's rationale. But given the whole host of stakeholders here, the Supreme Court has said we will allow time to all the parties to submit their suggestions and their arguments by the weekend. This matter will get taken up on Monday, that's August 22nd, and that's when the apex court will again dwell on the question of whether or not an expert panel is required to deliberate on this issue going forward on the critical issue of freebies. Back to you.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. We'll take a break, but when we return, uncertainty over paddy cultivation is casting a shadow on global food security. A special report from Tamil Nadu's Delta region, considered one of the rice bowls of India, when we return. In a major organizational overhaul, Union Minister Nitin Gadkari and Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan have both been dropped from the BJP's parliamentary board. Former Karnataka Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa and former Assam Chief Minister Sarbananda Sonowal have been inducted in the revamped board. The board, headed by the party's national president J.P. Nadda, will also have Prime Minister Modi, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Home Minister Amit Shah. The CEO of the Unique Identification Authority of India, Saurabh Garg, has defended the move to link voter IDs with the Aadhaar, saying this move will remove any possibility of an Aadhaar duplication. Speaking to my colleague Simji Jaipuria, Garg also reiterated that Aadhaar data is safe and secure.
Aadhaar, as you mentioned, is the infrastructure for good governance. And any activity which is authorized by the Parliament can use this infrastructure. So this is something which there has been an amendment to the Act, and which the process is going on. Our cyber security systems, our information security systems are of the highest order. Even the Honorable Minister in the Parliament recently had mentioned when there was a specific question on leakage of data, so-called leakage of data. Our systems in UIDI, in Aadhaar, are best of class. Unless and until the Aadhaar number is accompanied with either the fingerprint or the iris, or we have also introduced face authentication now, there can be no misuse of this number.
Well, that is the CEO of the UIDAI. There is a new threat to global food security, and it stems from fears that India's rice cultivation may not meet expectations. This comes even as 2 weeks ago, RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das emphasized the shortfall in paddy sowing, although buffer stocks are above par. The question, however, remains, what ails India's paddy crop? As part of our series, What's Ailing Rural India, Jude Sanet travels to India's rice bowl, the Kaveri Delta region, to look for answers.
In Thanjavur, a town in east-central Tamil Nadu, the Kuruvai cultivation is about to end. The Tamil word refers to a short-term harvest over a 4-month period between May and August. During the season, around 3.2 lakh acres of paddy are sown along the banks of the river Kaveri. This year though, water from the Kaveri did not make it to these fields on time, and the cream of the crop is withering away. On average, the Kuruvai crop sown here in the Kaveri Delta has a life cycle of about 120 days, of which 80 require water in abundance. The problem though is that it is precisely this period that sees water required by these crops collect in catchment areas in Karnataka, only after which it is released to Tamil Nadu's agrarian districts. The result is only about 30 days of water supply, often at irregular, unpredictable intervals. This spells disaster for Tamil Nadu's paddy fields, many of which do not have the support of artificial irrigation systems.
In some places, our paddy seedlings were charred because there was not enough water to keep it alive till the harvest. Today, water is being released in the Kaveri because of surplus rainfall in Karnataka, but it's of no use and ends up being let into the sea.
While a herd of cattle grazes on dead paddy crops strewn along these dry lands, one farmer shows me his 2 acres laid to waste. With the Kaveri aqueducts staying dry for 2 months, Rajavel won't sell any paddy this year. And the fact that crop insurance does not cover the Kuruvai harvest because of the risks involved is just salt on his wounds.
We suffered major losses on the Kuruvai harvest last year as well, but we haven't received any insurance payout yet. We have paid up all our premiums and are repaying our crop loans till date.
To get around this problem, some farmers try to delay sowing their paddy. But other factors, like the onset of the northeast monsoons, have ruined their harvest. Then there are rules, like the paddy procurement policy, which mandates that crops brought to procurement centres not have more than 17% moisture. That's impossible once monsoons set in, and so many of the sacks that do make it to the centres are rejected.
An acre can supply us 40 sacks of rice, but today we just about manage 30 bags of damage due to rains and rejected stocks.
Because northeast monsoon comes in the time of harvesting of the Kuruvai. So that time we are facing a lot of problem. We are not able to bring the grains from our field to the direct purchase centers. We are losing our grains also.
Farm associations say the only way forward is if the government intervenes to get Kaveri water released on time. The Supreme Court ruling mandates that 177,000 million cubic feet of Kaveri water be released into Tamil Nadu every season. But Karnataka claims this can't happen unless its own reservoirs fill up first. Harvesters now want lift and tunnel irrigation channels to save the crop.
National Water Dispute Act is very clear. Who are the tail-end area farmers, tail-end area beneficiaries, they should be preferred the first priority. But they are not maintaining.
The Tamil Nadu government has not committed to state-level intervention, but has promised compensation for farmers with crop losses.
As things stand today, the Kuruvai sowing and transplanting process has come to a close. We understand there are issues with insurance payouts for certain farmers and are looking at compensating them through the disaster relief route.
But this still does not address the delay in release of Kaveri water. This season, the area under paddy cultivation in the Kaveri Delta has increased from 3.2 lakh acres to 5.2 lakh acres. But this only means that the stakes are higher than ever before, especially since the uncertainties have not diminished in any fashion. In Thanjavur, Jude Sanath.
Well, that is the latest in our edition, What's Ailing Rural India. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues when we return.